Welcome to the show, everybody. Got a massive episode here. I'm going to give you all the optimal players to draft in the first 5 rounds, giving you the 1.01 here in this mock draft. So I'm going to simulate the first 5 rounds, walking you through every player to avoid and every player that I absolutely love. We're going to have an open discussion, deep dive here. This isn't just a regular mock draft where I tell you to draft based on consensus, aka Consheeps' rankings, because they'll just tell you T. Higgins round 2. Like, they'll just draft based on ADP, and that's not how you win your league. I'm going to tell you who is going to crush it this year in the first 5 rounds. So we have a solid foundation on what to do drafting from the 1.01 position, okay? So I'm excited to dive in here. I'm going to pull up the draft board here so you get an idea. We are queued up, ready to go. Again, this is a simulation, but it's based on ADP in regards to when the players are coming off. So I'm excited to dive in. If you are new to the channel, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. It takes a fraction of a second. Hit that thumbs up button hard. Hit it hard, smash it, and drop a comment below. Who would you draft at the 1.01? Now, this position is very important, this 1.01, because it is a precious pick. But understand that we win our leagues typically in the later rounds, right? Like Ladd McConkey, who we're getting in like the 8th round last year in the 16-round draft session. If you haven't gotten 16 rounds, make sure you guys grab it. I'll link it below. This is the game changer. I was recommending you get Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey last year, round 7 and 9. And those were 2 of our wide receivers. But, you still got to do well in the early rounds. Last year, we were drafting later. I got Barkley, I got Henry, and I went Josh Allen the first 3 rounds. Did pretty well. Had Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, and others later on, okay? You're not going to hit every single one, and not everyone's going to be a grand slam. Last year, we messed up a little bit on Zamir White. Hey, that's okay, because we were balanced. We knew what to do in other scenarios. You can have 1 or 2 bad seeds if the rest of the team is hitting, right? So, again, grab 16 rounds. I'm doing the full, if you want the full mock draft, it's going to be in the 16-round draft, so you should grab it below, okay? So let's dive into it right now. Let's go to, again, hit that thumbs up before we start. So who are we going with the 1.01? I'm going to narrow this down for you so it's super easy. It doesn't have to be complicated, okay? It really, really doesn't. Even though there's a ton of value at running back later, like guys that I love, which again, if you can get in 16 rounds, and I explain in my videos, that's why you got to subscribe. You can get a ton of value. Guys like RJ Harvey, for example. RJ Harvey, believe it or not, his ADP is going to be rising up, but we'll get to that in a sec. But even though there's running backs later that I love, you still want to anchor your team with a running back earlier on. So I'm going to filter here by running backs because I know, based on my experience and years of doing this, that it is the most scarce position. Even though there's more depth, like I said this year, you still want to secure your team with a running back. The big question is, which running back? So let's take a look at the possible prospects that I would consider drafting at the 1.01. Saquon Barkley, okay? Problem with Saquon is that I've seen it many, many times. I'm going to talk about this many, many times. The last time a running back finished on top 2 years in a row was Priest Holmes, 2002, 2003. It's very unlikely he'll do it again. And just to kind of hammer that point home, I think only 9 running backs have had over 2,000 yards rushing. He's one of those 9 running backs, including guys like Adrian Peterson, 2,000 plus rushing yards. He had that last year, so it's very likely that a regression is going to happen, especially off a Super Bowl hangover. We saw it with CMC. Super Bowl hangover, I called it. Now, how much of a regression yet to be seen, although the scenario is perfect for him to crush it because simply there is no committee, right? Like when you look at a running back, particularly in the first round, you'd want to make sure there's no other running back there. You got to factor in a regression and a possible injury because I always go back to the example. If you run across a highway, a busy highway one time, you might not get hit if you're smart. Don't do this, by the way. I'm just giving, this is an analogy. It's a hypothetical. I use it as an analogy for fantasy. If you run across that highway, which again, you shouldn't be doing, 5 times, there's a good chance you're going to get smoked by one of the cars, right? Maybe if you do it 100 times, you're eventually going to hit. So that's what happens with running backs. They run so much, they're just bound to get hurt, right? That's the thing. So Saquon is a consideration for sure, but based on what I said, I'm probably fading him. Let's talk about Bijan Robinson. For all the people that get upset for the way I pronounce it, I'm the only one pronouncing it right. It is Bijan. Bi as in bi-weekly, B-I weekly. Jan, R-A-N as in tan, as in fan, as in man. Jan. I don't know what a Bijan is, a B-E-E-G-H-O. I don't know. And I don't care that's how he pronounces it. This is how I pronounce it. I don't follow the herd when I do my stuff. I don't care what people say. I just do what I feel is right, what I feel like doing. I know it's right. And last year, right, everybody's like, you're nuts. Why do you want Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr.? Just get Christian Kirk before Brian Thomas. That's ADP. You're crazy to get Brian Thomas Jr. over him. Whatever, okay? Like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. So listen, you gotta just think, you gotta be a little crazy. You gotta just do things that you feel are right. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. So back to Bijan. I think he is by far one of, if not the safest options here at the 1.01. Why? Why? Because he's trending upwards. He was held back his first rookie year with Arthur Smith. Now he finally got to run loose last year, over 300 attempts. He's gonna eat, right? He's primed to eat. There's no committee there. I'm not concerned. He ran away with that job. He's not gonna have someone dip into his stuff, okay? And the other option here, there's two more options that I like, are Jahmyr Gibbs and Genty. The reason Jahmyr Gibbs, I love him, is because the talent. I think he's by far the most talented running back in the NFL. The only problem is Montgomery, and that bothers me. You really got to bank on a Montgomery injury to have Jahmyr Gibbs finish on top again. Montgomery was out like week 14. Jahmyr Gibbs came in, tore it up. His production went up. His value went up. His volume went up. Everything went up. And every time you touch the ball, you are in for a possible explosive play. So the problem with Jahmyr Gibbs is not Jahmyr Gibbs, it's Montgomery, who was going to get over 200 attempts, which I don't like. I don't like my workhorse running back, the guy I'm drafting in the first round, to have his volume stolen. So much so that I believe Montgomery will be coming out on the first drive. That's your first overall pick. That's a problem for me. That bothers me. And again, finished on top last year, very unlikely to finish on top, possible regression. That being said, Henry, I think he's still going to have a good year, but he's not as exciting as some of these younger guys. So that leads me to Ashton Genty. Why do I love Ashton Genty so much? Listen, he's in the perfect storm. There's no other running back there at the end of the day. What you got there is an elite talent guy, great vision, great hands, top running back prospect, ability to cut, ability to take off the line really quickly, ability to explode, the ability to catch the ball, ability to get the goal line work. You're getting the full package there with Genty. You don't draft a running back in the first round to bench him unless you're Arthur Smith with Bijan a couple years ago. I hope people that watched that learned a lesson. You don't hinder your best player. So listen, at the end of the day, man, it's a risk, but it's a calculated, proper risk. So based on this, it's either Bijan or Genty. It's up to you guys to make the executive decision. I'm going to roll here for this simulation. We're going to go Ashton Genty with the first pick. And I could just sit here and make picks, but I explain stuff, right? So that you guys don't have these potential pitfalls on what's wrong or what's not right, right? You want to make sure you make the right decisions. You don't want to make the wrong decisions when you're drafting, especially in these precious early rounds, okay? So let's go through it real quick here. Who came off in the first round? If you're in the car, let's go through it. Ashton Genty, Saquon, Jamar Chase, and this is typically how it's going to go. I know this is ADP, right? But this is exactly what the first round typically looks like. And again, swapping out different positions, right? Maybe Bijan comes off second instead of Barkley, and Jamar Chase comes off sixth instead of third, right? So let's go through it. Genty, Barkley, Chase, Henry, Bijan, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Puka, Malik, and Brian Thomas. Let's talk about this first round in regards to like who could actually bust this round. And just one thing that's jumping out at me is the Brian Thomas Jr. Listen, I love him. I was the only one telling you to draft him last year, and I was adamant about it. Make sure Brian Thomas is on your team. I have some concerns with Brian Thomas, and that is a Travis Hunter problem. I just posted a video on my Instagram where Hunter definitely looks more athletic. Okay, so that's one thing. And another thing is just like if you draft a wide receiver so early, unless he becomes their corner and plays on the defensive side of the ball, you are going to use this guy. You are going to use Travis Hunter quite a bit. Right now you can say, well, then it's less double coverage for Brian. You could say that, and he's got the rapport with Trevor. And I still think Brian Thomas could have a similar year to last year. Very possible. But for me, based on the Travis Hunter acquisition, it's enough to kind of turn me off of him to say I wouldn't do it. And besides, I'm not going wide receiver early. I'm just not doing it. So Genty or Bijan first overall, I'm comfortable with that. And I think Henry a little early. We were getting him in the second round last year. Jefferson, Chase, I think Chase regresses a bit this year based off that pinnacle year. Amon-Ra, they're talking a lot about Williams. Williams stepping up this year. They got Laporta there. They got Gibbs. And he's always going to be safe, but he's just not going to be, he doesn't have that ceiling like as a Jamar Chase or Jefferson would have theoretically. Amon-Ra, I think he's just going to be a safe guy. The guy that's got the highest ceiling here, I think, is Malik Neighbors. He had bad quarterback play this last year. They get upgrade at quarterback potentially. So Malik Neighbors has an opportunity to shine this year. I think he's got the highest ceiling. Puka, if he stays healthy, but they brought in Adams. I don't know what the target distribution is going to be there, but it's always a concern when they bring in another alpha there, even though Adams is on kind of like the tail end of his career. Just be cautious there when you're looking at Puka, okay? And the injuries, that's a bit of a concern. So that's kind of the first round. You definitely want to go running back. That's what I would do. And if you want to play it safe with a wide receiver, go for it, okay? You could do that. But I told you who I like. I think the safest are Argenti and Bajan. Well, Joe, what if you're drafting later in the first round? Well, get 16-round drafts, especially because I explained I draft from the first, kind of the 8th and 9th position, and also the 12th position, so you get a feel on who to draft. We do 3 mock drafts in the 16-round drafts, which we'll walk through the full mock draft. You can get that below. Where's my banner here? There you go, 16 rounds. And you guys will be light years ahead of the sheep. Okay. Again, nobody's talking about this. Nobody teaches this stuff. They don't say, last year I was looking at the first round and I was like, Joe, you're crazy. How could you tell me not to draft Christian McCaffrey with my 1.01? I told you don't draft Christian. Everyone's saying draft Christian McCaffrey 1.01. I'm like, just don't draft him at all. Just don't do it. Right. And everyone's like, oh, this channel is messed up. How could you tell us that? How could you do that when everybody else? How do you go against the grain so much that you're telling us not to draft Christian McCaffrey? I'm like, well, there was like 7 red flags. I did videos explaining the flags. He got married, Super Bowl hangover, 2 pinnacle years, injuries in 2020 and 2021 where he played 10 combined games. What goes up must come down. Like there's so many like red flags. So it's all about seeing stuff. And that's what I do, guys. That's why I see stuff. So I'm able to deliver on a high level in the 16-round draft solution. And of course, here on this podcast, that's why we're number one. That's why we tell people want the truth. People don't want to be lied to and manipulated every year and told copy and paste rankings. They want to see the vision, and I want to see the vision with you guys and share my vision, I should say. Okay. So let's go through this here. Second round, Jonathan Taylor, very high for a guy who just can't stay healthy, coming off yet another relatively pinnacle year for a guy who hasn't stayed healthy. He still didn't finish this year last year. I don't trust him. Nico Collins has got some company. They drafted Higgins. I think it's Jaden Higgins there, relatively early high draft capital. Do we trust Stroud? Just to give you guys some information on Stroud, I think he's dealing with a minor injury on his, I think it's shoulder, something like that. I think it's his throwing shoulder. Be cautious with Stroud this year. McCaffrey, better. I think McCaffrey's trending upwards this year. I still have my McCaffrey issues. I don't trust that guy at all. But better value at the 2.03, like in the early second round over the 1.01 last year. Brock Bowers, I can sit here and analyze everybody, but I'll be here for 5 hours. But hey, this is what the value is, right? I'm teaching you guys. I'm telling you guys the pluses and minuses, everybody. It's up to you guys to decide, hey, is this guy trending up? Is he trending down? What am I doing, right? So Brock Bowers, listen, it's a whole new offense. That's all I got to say. Like, they drafted Jack Beck in the second round. They got Genti who's going to catch the balls out of the backfield. They got a new quarterback in Smith, right? Like, different offense, right? It's not going to be the Gardner Minshew feed Brock Bowers because there's nobody else show. It's going to change. And remember, you got him for a value last year. Why would you spend a second round pick on a guy in an entirely new scenario? That's all I got to say about Bowers. Kyron Williams, contract year, love him. This is a guy that I think is in a great situation, barring any injury. He's the guy, right? And I can go into reasons why. They brought in Blake Corum, I think in the second or third round last year, drafted Corum, and he was a non-factor because Kyron's the guy. And, he was fed over 300 attempts. So that is huge. When you're looking at a running back, it's like, okay, they're the guy. It doesn't matter who they bring in, okay? Keep that in mind. A.J. Brown, safe, but not exciting. Super Bowl hangover, possibly. Josh Jacobs, I think he's in a safe situation. I'm not really a Jacobs fan, though. Drake London, safe. Laporta, I think he's going to fall a round or two. This might be a little early here. Odchain, he's coming off very early here, right? This is kind of where he's coming off. Round 2. I'm not an Odchain fan. I'm not a Miami believer. Jalen Wright has stepped up. He looks really good. I've been watching his training. Jalen Wright looks like an absolute monster. And then Odchain, man, he only had 203 attempts. The volume isn't there. And yeah, he makes it up in receptions, but is he going to continue to receive the ball if Tyreek gets an uptick and actually steps up? from what I hear, which is good news for Tyreek, I'm not a Tyreek fan. Apparently he's found God. He's going to church. He wants to better himself. Maybe Tyreek has a little bit of a bounce back year. So, it's interesting, but like Shane, I don't know, man. I'm just not a believer in Miami and their running backs, but that's just me, right? You guys make your decision. I'm giving you my feedback. This is crazy. Ladd McConkey, this is the guy who is a slot receiver. And by default, let's talk Ladd McConkey for a second. Listen, I was the only guy really advocating for McConkey. I was the one with the saying. And you can remember it, don't be a donkey, draft Ladd McConkey on all your rosters. This was my saying last year. This year, I'm telling you, you are a donkey if you draft like Ladd McConkey in the second or third round or at all, because he's coming off the second round. Why? Because he, by default, last year, was the wide receiver one. There was nobody else there. Quentin Johnson sucked. Then no one else. In comes Trey Harris this year. That's the guy you want. And you can get him after the 7th round, and you're getting the wide receiver one. I was just reading a report right now that he's already solidified the wide receiver 2 position. Again, because there's no one else there. Mike Williams and Quentin Johnson just ain't it. So if you're looking for the X receiver, the alpha, the potential replacement, the better replacement to a Keenan Allen, look no further than Trey Harris, who was drafted because of his clutch playability, his reliable hands. He doesn't have the huge top end speed, but man, he could do some stuff after that catch. He's a dog after the catch. So that's who you want. Again, 60 rounds will explain this. That's where you get the full mock draft. So you get all my sleepers, right? But Ladd, I'm not going to do it this year. I'm not paying the second round pick. When we have 16 rounders, we're getting this guy for the 7th round. We're going to find the next Ladd McConkey. I'm telling you who they are. And we're gonna go through that. So you guys know who the next Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkeys are. And you don't have to spend a second round pick. You're getting the workhorse running backs, whoever it is. So we're on the clock now. Actually, we got to get going here with the clock. All right. So now, the problem with this position is this. I have a major issue. And I drafted from the 1.9. I didn't have this main issue because I was able to get Kyren Williams and stack him with Genty. I went in my big money league. I went Genty and I went Kyren right here, right? Because like you see, Kyren comes off at the 2.5. So we got a bit of a problem here because I'm not really 100% crazy about these running backs. I'll tell you the guys I like here because again, I like to go robust RB. Bucky's okay. I think he's going to be solid because the offense is good. I'm just not as crazy. I think he's kind of like a really solid 1B. James Cook, I don't trust. He's having contract disputes. Chase Brown, I really like. I just think that his overall ceiling is limited and his talent isn't on the level of some of these top running backs. So I have an issue with him. As an RB2, it's not bad. Brees is kind of hit or miss. I kind of lean towards like not trusting Brees Hall and the Jets. Fields, he runs a lot. I don't trust him at quarterback. Mixon, I don't trust. Walker, I don't trust. Chuba, I definitely don't trust. So a lot of these guys, I really just don't trust. I'd have to reach on some of these rookies if I felt comfortable here, but I think they'll fall to the 4 and 5. So I'm going to take a quick glance at wide receiver here. Now, here's the thing. Here's the cool thing, right? Because I feel there's a lot of good running backs here, like the RJ Harveys and stuff like that, I would be inclined to kind of take a look and say, hey, man, like I would maybe, if you want, get an ace wide receiver here that you feel comfortable with. I don't feel Higgins 100% no, because he's the wide receiver 2 on his team. I want to scream this from the top of my lungs, right? The year when Higgins was coming off round 2, he busted the year after. He got hurt. He finished 51st amongst wide receivers and didn't play the full season. Then last year, he had a good season, and now they're back on him. Don't do it, guys. He's the wide receiver 2, and T. Higgins' ceiling is 109 targets. Go look it up. He's never eclipsed 109, 110 targets, and his 10 touchdowns last year was an absolute pinnacle in his 3 or 4 year, whatever he's played. He's never hit 10 touchdowns, so he had a pinnacle year last year in regards to touchdowns. Do not, under any circumstance, trust T. Higgins, okay? He's a wide receiver 2. You don't want to get a wide receiver 2 as your wide receiver 1. You always want to aim high on the depth chart. So let's dive into this here. Which wide receiver would I consider here? We're talking about Tyreek Hill, stepping it back up. I do like Jackson Smith and Jigma. The thing about him is, again, Seattle, I don't know, they brought in Cup. I got my question marks. I think he's safe. Marvin Harrison, I think he's got a little more ceiling. Mike Evans, if you want to play it safe, but they did draft Emeka Egbuka. It's tough. McLaurin, I really am a fan of. Daniels. Got some options. Let's take a quick glance at quarterback. You definitely want to anchor your team with an ace quarterback. So I think you have to kind of get Josh Allen here on this turn because that way you are solidifying quarterback, getting it out of the way. So let's just grab Josh Allen here. because I'm going to get him at 3 either way. Now I'm done with quarterback. That's a whole other thing I want to explain later on why you need to anchor your team with an ace quarterback. I think there's a ton of great quarterbacks. There's a ton of depth, but not Josh Allen. You know what I'm saying? So I take a look at running back, and again, I still think there's a ton of depth. Hampton's solid here, but he probably won't come back. Maybe he will. But let's get a wide receiver so that we can anchor our team with an ace wide receiver and just kind of be done with it, right? Now, ADP would tell us Mike Evans. I think like Marvin Harrison, I just think there's no one else there. They didn't draft anybody else. There's no competition. Jackson Smith's good, but he's got a little competition, right? We talked about Kupp being there. Like, I'm not really afraid of Kupp. I think Kupp's on his tail end of his career. I think Kupp's not that good, but he's good enough to steal volumes from Jackson Smith. So that's a concern. But Marvin Harrison has no competition. Zero. It's just going to be the Marvin Harrison show. He's put on and he's put on some weight. I'm just going to get the guy that's got no competition, who's due for a bounce back. And again, last year he was coming off right here. He was coming off early round 2, get a discount. I'm going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. So that is round. Let's rip through the last couple rounds here. So what happens here? Jackson Smith comes off, Bucky, Cook, Kittle, Williams. Way too early for Williams. That's wild. Lamar Jackson, Breece Hall, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Chase Brown, Tyreek. Okay? So round 4. Again, it comes around the turn. We're going to get to 412. We're coming up. Joe Mixon, Walker, Connor, I don't trust. Daniels, McLaurin, Chuba, don't trust. Trey McBride could be safe, but I think Marvin Harrison's going to be the one this year. Adams, DJ Moore, don't trust. Don't like Chicago. Way too many targets here. I know I like Ben Johnson, who came over from Detroit as the head coach now. He's going to do some good stuff with Caleb Williams and stuff, but I don't really trust the distribution. Way too many mouths to feed there, okay? They drafted Luther Burden. They've got Rome Oduzde is going to take a step up. They drafted Loveland at the tight end position, Colson Loveland. Too much going on. Hurts, and then there's Amarian Hampton. Amarian Hampton comes off, and that you're going to lose Amarian Hampton here on the 3-4 turn. I want to make you aware, but I also want to make you aware that Amarian Hampton is going to be, I love the talent, and I can talk about this a lot. I love Amarian Hampton. The problem with Amarian Hampton is the Najee problem. Najee just doesn't really get hurt, and he's just going to be a thorn, and he's going to get his volume, and he's going to be annoying, and he's going to be a pest. He's going to steal goal line work. It's going to be annoying for Amarian Hampton unless the Chargers completely decide that we're going to bench Najee and just run Hampton. So that's the concern I have, okay? So what I'm going to do to wrap this up, I've kind of got our ace wide receiver. And by the way, I want to just tell you, and I explained this in the 16-round draft, so make sure you guys do grab it. I cannot talk good enough about the 16-round draft solution. It's just absolutely amazing, okay? But what I want to tell you here about it is that you can literally wait on wide receiver. There is wide receivers for absolute days, okay? So, I mean, like tons and tons and tons and tons of wide receivers for absolute days, okay? And you can wait. And in the 16-round draft, I'll tell you exactly who they are, which ones you can stack and be completely fine. Like I told you to draft McConkey, and I told you to draft Brian Thomas Jr. last year, okay? So what are we doing here? I take a quick glance at quarterback. We've got our quarterbacks. We're good. It's out of the way. We've got the best quarterback in the league at fantasy, so we're good. And we're going to back him up later. But we're going to go running back here. And at the end of the day, man, it's like I look at all these options. Montgomery's a 2. Kamara's old as dirt. You got to look at Henderson and consider him, but I like Harvey here. I'm definitely going Harvey. And my question would be, I ask myself this because I'm a big advocate of Caleb Johnson this year. Ask myself, would Caleb Johnson come back 24 picks later or so, 23 picks? I'm going to say no, he's not. And I don't really like the talent here. I don't care for Metcalf. Sutton's safe. You know, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, I don't know what's going to happen with suspension possibly looming. He's got 8 pending charges. You know, Garrett Wilson, do I trust the Jets, right? It's like, I'm going to go, and tight end, I could wait on tight end. I got a bunch of tight end sleepers later. Do I want to get another wide receiver like these guys? You know, like, look at these. This reminds me here, when you look at Rice at the 20 and Worthy, it reminds me of last year a little bit, even though they're a little cheaper. But Ayuk and Debo, when everyone's telling you to grab them around 3 and nobody knows who the 1 is, I would lean towards Rashee being the 1, but why would you invest a 4th round pick on, you know, or 4th or 5th round pick on Worthy? It doesn't make any sense. So you got a bunch of 2s here. Devontae Smith, Xavier Worthy. You got, you know, Zay Flowers. He could be safe, but not limited ceiling, right? Ridley could be the 1, but he's got a couple good rookies there in Tennessee with Ward. I think Ward could be really good this year, right? But look where Ward comes off here as a sleeper. Cameron Ward, like quarterback 28. So there's a ton of good backups you can get with upside later, okay? That's a whole other topic. So I'm going to do what I feel is the right decision, and I'm going to go with Caleb Johnson. Why am I going to go with Caleb Johnson? I'm going to explain to you guys very, very simple, in very simple terms, why I'm going with Caleb Johnson. 260 freed up attempts. Warren sucks. If Warren was good, he would have taken that job from Najee. He never did. He was only limited to 120 attempts with crappy Najee there last year. I understand Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator, but they drafted Caleb in the 3rd round, and he's going to take that job. He's the hungriest. He's the best running back in that backfield. You know, talent rises to the top. So what did I do here? Let's recap. I went with the best possible running back in the 1st round next to Bijan. Either one would have been good. Came back, anchored my team with Josh Allen. Could have waited to the 3rd round to get him. Didn't matter because I was on the turn. 2.12, 3.01 right beside each other. Went with the best possible wide receiver in the situation based on minimal committee and trending upwards based on last year. Came back around, got RJ Harvey, whose quads are just as big as Saquon's, and there's really no competition other than Audric Estime, who only had 76 rushing attempts. And Joe, this is like, I know this off the top of my head because I studied this all day. Like I could see the vision, right? So could he bust? Sure. Anyone could bust. I mean, you could draft Jefferson round 1, he could bust. Would we trust JJ McCarthy? Do we trust Dak Prescott? He just had another kid who gets hurt all the time. Do we trust Amon-Ra St. Brown or just Jameson Williams, who's coming off round 3, who's getting praises from coaches, going to take some of that volume? Do we trust Puka? Where everybody's got question marks. Is it going to be Derrick Henry's fall off year? How far off is Jamar Chase going to fall off his pinnacle year? Is Joe Burrow going to get hurt because he's had his share of injuries, right? Like, everybody's got question marks. What you want to do is mitigate the risk and limit those question marks. So I look at Harvey. You know, you can say that he dances around the line at the line of scrimmage or whatever before the snap. When he gets the ball, he dances at the holes and cuts outside when he should have ran inside and all this stuff that the scouts are saying. It's like, dude, he's in a great situation, man. I'm not going to explain anymore. And then Caleb, same thing. Like I said, volume, opportunity, no committee there. And I've got my 3 right. And now you're saying, well, Joe, you got 3 rookie running backs. Okay, fine. Take Bijan instead of Genty. Like, you can mitigate risk, right? But it's a calculated risk. These are all primed running backs that are, who's gonna start over Genty? Zamir White? Who's gonna start over Harvey? Austin Estime? Who's gonna start over Caleb Johnson? Like, you got it. Like, fantasy is like a little bit of luck, right? But it's like common sense too, and using your brain, thinking outside the box. Okay. If this is making sense to you, make sure you guys smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. Let me know who you would draft here at the 1.01. Is this making sense? And I can go over everyone, why I don't like David Montgomery and why I don't like certain players like Brian Robinson Jr., boring old Bryanson Jr. And like, I can go over like McMillan is good, but do I trust Bryce Young? And Tyrone Tracy, they got Cam Scatabo. Do I trust him? Like, no, I like Swift sucks, like Pollard sucks. Like, you know, like I can sit here and explain why and go over their stats, how they've done nothing in their lives when it comes to fantasy production and all that. But it would take us 5 hours. But you guys get the idea, okay? So aim high on the depth chart. Go for youth, go for volume, go for opportunity. Secure a bunch of running backs that you love and believe in. Anchor your team with today's quarterback. If you want the full draft solution, the full mock draft, grab the 16-round drafts, which I've linked it below for all of the answers. Have yourself a great Monday, everybody. Hit the thumbs up, drop a comment, and I know this brings a lot of value that nobody else is bringing to you. So hit that thumbs up. Have yourself an outstanding day.